Hey everybody, Jeff Miller here, head of GRE Instruction and Target Test Prep. In today's video, I am excited to talk about how to get started with your GRE. There's some important tips I'm going to share with you if you're new to this test so you can get moving in the right direction. Number one, figure out and learn what the GRE tests and how it tests what it tests. So what do we mean by that? Well, eventually, I'm going to tell you to take a practice test in this video to get your baseline score, but that's going to be down the line. The first thing you need to do is you need to understand what is actually tested on the GRE. Otherwise, you won't be in a position to take that practice exam. So, study up on the test. See what kind of questions are being asked and how they're being asked. What do you have to know on the quantitative reasoning section? Well, there's multiple choice questions. There's multiple answer. There's numeric entry. There's quantitative comparison questions. Understand how those questions operate. Then on the verbal side, understand that you need to know a lot of vocabulary. Understand what a text completion question is, a sentence equivalence question. Understand how critical reasoning functions in reading comprehension, and also understand how many of these question types you might see. By doing that, you're going to start to develop at least a little bit of a foundation so that when you get to the phase of taking that practice exam, you'll be where you need to see exactly what your true baseline score is. Number two, and this is still before your practice exam, start to do some practice questions, right? It's great that you learn about what's tested on the GRE. It's great that you learn how things are tested on the GRE, but now put that knowledge to work. And look, I'm not saying do 500 questions of quant and verbal. Remember, it's the beginning of your prep. Just do some sample questions. Do some sample verbal questions of the different question types. Do some sample quant questions of the various question types. The whole purpose is so that when you get to the practice exam to get your baseline score, you have an idea of how these questions function. So it's going to be a true sense of your abilities and you're not going to be getting stuff wrong just because you don't understand how these questions function. Tip number three, and I'm sure you knew this was coming, take a practice test to get a baseline score. Now, important, take an official ETS practice exam. Yes, I know there are only 5 of them, and retaking them doesn't work, but I'm telling you, you want an accurate assessment of where you're at. You've done all this pre-work before taking the test, so don't blow it on a test that's not going to give you an accurate score. After that, you'll have 4 left for the end of your prep. When taking the test, follow realistic testing conditions. Follow the timing. Use the tools that you're going to get at the GRE, whether it's at home or at the test center. For example, don't bring a handheld calculator, right? Because you're not going to get one on test day. You want this to be accurate. And also, don't worry about what you score. Don't go into it feeling like, well, if I don't do as well as I need to, it's going to hurt my confidence. It is a starting score. I can't stress that enough. Good, bad, or ugly, it's the start. What matters is not where you started, because look, you're going to forget about that when it's all said and done. It's where you finish. So take the practice exam, get the baseline score, and then you're off to the races. Tip number 4, select effective GRE prep materials. So you've done the pre-work, you've done the practice exam. Now what, right? You still got to study for the GRE. So that's just the beginning. What you need to do to achieve your eventual score goal is you need to work with great study materials. Obviously, Target Test Prep has an awesome course that I'd love you to use. But if you're evaluating a lot of materials, which you can, most offer free or low-cost trials. Ours happens to be full access so you can get a full scope of the course. Try out those trials. See what works for you. When doing so, one key component that I think is super important is you want to make sure those courses have study plans that you can follow. That's important because you need a roadmap. You need to know where you're going from the beginning all the way to the end. If you don't have that roadmap, it's going to be difficult to see the clearing through the trees. It's going to be difficult to know when this process or windy road will end. So look for a good study plan that allows you to study topically, as I always like to say, that allows you to master each topic one by one from beginning to end. And just as long as you choose the right course for you that has things like a great study plan, you should be well on your way to getting the score goal you deserve. Number 5, after you have your study plan, create a study schedule. The study schedule is important because you got to know when you're going to study. You can have the best study plan in the world, but if you're not actually putting in the time or using it, you're not going to go anywhere. So you got to sit down, you got to look at your life. If you're a working professional, when are you free to study? Does it make sense to wake up in the morning and study? Does it make sense to stay at the office and study? Does it make sense to do a combination of the two? You really got to figure that out so that you're doing the most effective prep you can do and you're moving towards your goal. I stress about 18 hours a week of prep if you can do it. It's a lot of hours. That's about 2 hours each weekday, 4 hours each weekend day, but there's a lot you got to learn for the GRE. So you got to put in as much study time as possible. You have to make a plan that's realistic for you. And yeah, you might have to push things out of your life to make time for the GRE, but as I love to say, it's a finite process. So if you're working hard, eventually it will be over and all the fun things you're not doing will come back into your life, and all of this GRE prep will of course be a distant memory. So to conclude, the tips to get started on your GRE: you got to learn what's tested on the GRE. You got to practice what's tested. Take your practice exam to get a baseline score right after that. Compare it to what your goal score is so you can kind of get an estimated timeline. Then select great study resources, ideally one with a study plan. Then sit down, create your study schedule, follow that study plan, do everything you need to do from beginning to end, and you should end up with the GRE score you want, the GRE score you deserve, and hopefully this test will be over sooner rather than later for you. All right, so that's a wrap on today's video. I had a blast giving you some tips on how to get started with your GRE prep. If you're new to the exam, I hope that you followed closely and you will follow those tips. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to our channel. We have more videos coming, and always leave comments for us. We're happy to provide more videos that you'll find effective for your personal studying. Thanks again for watching, everybody. We'll talk soon, and happy studying.